Hi, this is Voice Gone to Hell. Today we are going to be doing an episode about the sci-fi that I've created with my friend UnknownG. It's going to be a very basic timeline of the sci-fi. That being said, it is not at all short. It is very, very, very long and fleshed out. So if you do not have the patience for this series, I suggest looking at one of my other episodes. For example, my Star Wars Empire at War videos, a Republic at War mod, or my Republic Commando videos, even just my normal informational uploads. But again, if you do not have a very strong attention span, I suggest not watching this series. But that being said, I would still like as many people as possible to watch this. So today we are going to begin with the era that starts off the universe, and obviously it begins with the Big Bang, which spreads out all matter in the known universe, and there is an odd fluctuation near the specific sci-fi, and it's kind of like a wormhole, except it has multiple thousands of set coordinates that you could pop out of at any time. It's like a massive network, and somewhere inside of the wormhole is something called the void, and the void is going to become very important later on. And the idea is that it has incredible gravitational power, strong enough for thousands of different galactic disks to exist around these wormholes, or specifically the area that these wormholes all have a path that where they all have a coinciding path. All of the galactic disks in the sci-fi revolve around that point, and that is what is known as the true void, and that becomes again very important later on. So the planet Devros is one of the most important planets in the sci-fi itself, and it later becomes home to the massive city of Dev Center, which becomes the heart of the Dev Nation. And why I say the Dev Nation is because Devros is, or was rather, colonized by two different groups of people, the Dev and the R, both taking up a part of the word Dev-Ros. So, in 3500 BDV, which is, if you weren't here last episode, BDV means before the Dev victory over the R, or just before Dev victory, and ADV is just after Dev victory. So, to prevent constant warps in space-time through a bunch of wormholes, they create a sort of guide. They've been creating this since they've actually discovered wormholes in 3500 BDV. So they finally are able to create wormhole stations, which operate as lane guides, and they obviously create laws that say that you cannot take out these lane guides, because if you take out these wormhole lane guides, then civilian and military ships will basically become destroyed, because they won't have anywhere that they actually know how to get to. They'll just kind of be jumping into random wormholes, which is not good for something as dangerous as a wormhole. So, after these lanes were created in 3000 BDV, the Dev and the R have this massive theory, because constant fuel reserves are coming out of portals to the void itself, even though they haven't actually named the void yet. They have this theory that there's something that these wormholes lead to, or these portals rather, lead to, and they begin an expedition to try and see what is in the void, because they fear that it may be the byproduct of a much larger and much more dangerous endeavor being taken place in the void itself. So they do this in 16 BDV, and I know that's a big jump, but early on the history haven't really fleshed out that much, so hopefully I can try and get something down for that. Anyways, again, if you guys want, maybe if you have a good idea that coincides with the universe, I will actually add it into the sci-fi. So just tell me what you want, and I'll see if it's viable, because there's actually a possibility that your idea might be able to go into it. So, basically, after this occurrence of the investigation that the Dev and the R have begun, the language known as Keyson is invented as a basic trading language for the Dev and the R, which isn't incredibly important, but, I mean, it is kind of important to know how everyone communicates. So that was invented in 610 BDV, and of course there were other languages before that, but this is the first real, full language that everyone understands. It's almost as if, in the ancient world, if there was a shared language from Mesopotamia, India, China, and the Greek colonies, and that would have been incredibly helpful with dealing with one another. So then the operation finds what the operation led by the Dev and the R to try and investigate these wormholes finds the colonies, and the colonies, if you weren't here in my last episode, are members of a separate galaxy that also orbits the void coinciding point. And this other galaxy is inhabited by other different species that are sentient but have not grown to the sentience of the ability to use wormhole technology to travel through space and time. And now the Dev and the R have given up on their hope of finding out what's in the void for now, because they are relatively happy with these colonies, because really they only know one planet anywhere, and that is Deveros. So just being able to find other planets with life on it is truly a blessing for these factions. And finally, that happens in 234 BDV. Finally, before this massive war known as the Predominant War, the thing that sparks it is a bunch of Dev and R forces begin to skirmish over the planet that they discovered in the colonies, which is known as Xionos. And when they begin this fight, it goes from a skirmish to a regular full-fledged battle, and then warlords start adding to the commotion, local gangs, local partisan groups, militias, and it spirals out of control, finally starting the Predominant Wars. If you want to hear more about these topics, and if you think that you would like to hear this fleshed out far more, please tell me, and I will try to make that possible. Anyway, as always, enjoy.